Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The bedroom was immaculate, sunlight streaming through the windows and highlighting the polished wood floors. Amara ran her fingers along the dresser, checking for dust, straightening a photo frame that held a picture of her and her husband, Dean. It was a recent photo, taken at a friend's wedding. They looked happy, content. But looks could be deceiving. As she turned, her eye caught a flash of lace. Her heart stuttered as she spotted a black camisole draped over the back of a chair. Her brows furrowed, confusion clouding her features. "That's not mine." Moving towards the chair, she picked up the camisole, running the soft fabric between her fingers. It was expensive, silky, and clearly not something she owned. Her mind began to race, her heart pounding in her chest. Whose is this? Did Dean buy this for someone else? Dropping the garment as if it had burned her, she spun on her heel, her eyes scanning the room for any other signs of an intruder. Her gaze landed on the closet, slightly ajar. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open, her breath catching in her throat as her eyes fell upon a secret Dean had been keeping for years. Hiding in the back of the closet was a treasure trove of women's clothing, dresses, skirts, heels, and stockings. Her mouth dropped open as she took in the array of colors and textures. What the hell? Without thinking, she reached for the items, her hands touching soft fabrics and delicate lathes. Her confusion turned to anger as she realized the extent of Dean's secret. How long has this been going on? "Dean!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the house. "Get up here right now. We need to talk." Moments later, Dean appeared at the bedroom door, his expression curious, perhaps a little guilty.
"What's up, babe? You sounded—" His words trailed off as his eyes followed Amara's gaze to the clothing strewn across the bed. His face drained of color, and he opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Amara's eyes narrowed, and she took a step towards him, her hands balling into fists. "Who is she?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "And don't you dare lie to me!" Dean held his hands up in surrender. There's no one else. This is—" He paused, taking a tentative step forward. "It's mine, Ara. All of it."
She stared at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of deception. "Yours? What the hell are you talking about, Dean? You expect me to believe that you—"
"I know. It sounds crazy."
He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes flicking to the clothing and then back to her.
"But it's true. I like to crossdress. I have for a long time."
Amara felt as though the wind had been knocked out of her sails. She staggered backwards, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed. "What?" she whispered, her mind reeling. But why? We've been married for years, and you've never—" Dean nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and relief.
"I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you, but I didn't know how. I was scared of what you'd think of losing you."
"Losing me?" Amara's voice cracked as she processed his words. "You thought I'd leave you because of this?" He nodded, his eyes pleading.
"I know it's not something a lot of people understand. I've always been worried you'd think I was less of a man or that I wasn't attracted to you anymore."
Amara let out a humorless laugh, her hands reaching up to push her hair back from her face. "So you thought keeping it a secret was the best idea? God, Dean, how long has this been going on?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "A while. Since before we met, even. It's always been something I've enjoyed, something that makes me feel—" He paused, searching for the right words.
"Free, I guess. It has nothing to do with my attraction to you or anyone else. It's just me."
She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "I can't believe this. All this time, you've been keeping this from me. I thought we shared everything." "I know, and I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, Ara. Please believe that." He took a step towards her, his hands reaching out as if to comfort her. But she shrugged him off. "How can I not take this personally, Dean? You obviously didn't trust me enough to share this with me. Or worse, you thought I'd be so small-minded that I'd judge you for it." She wiped angrily at the tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm your wife, for God's sake!
I love you, all of you. I thought you knew that." Dean dropped his hands, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "I do know that, and I'm so damn sorry. You have every right to be angry, but please try to understand. I was scared, and keeping this hidden just seemed easier than risking losing you." Amara stood, her hands balling into fists at her sides. "Well, congratulations. Now you get to deal with an angry wife and my serious disappointment in your lack of trust in me. I thought I knew you, Dean. Apparently, there's a lot I don't." He winced as if her words were a physical blow. "I know, and that's on me. All I can say is that I'm sorry, and I hope you can eventually forgive me for keeping this from you."
"Eventually?" Amara raised an eyebrow, her anger beginning to simmer. "You think this is something I can just get over? That we can sweep it under the rug and move on?"
"Of course not," he said quickly. "But maybe, just maybe, we can try to understand each other a little better. I'll answer any questions you have, no matter how difficult. And I promise from now on, no more secrets." She gave a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Questions? You think a few questions will make this okay? That I won't lie awake at night wondering what else you're hiding from me?" "Ara, please." Dean's voice was hoarse, his eyes pleading. "I know I messed up, but I'm begging you to try and see things from my perspective just a little. This wasn't easy for me either." Amara's shoulders slumped, her anger beginning to drain away, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. "I know," she whispered. "And I do want to understand, Dean. I don't know if I can right now." He nodded, his expression grim. "I get that. I don't expect you to be okay with this overnight. It's a lot to process. Just don't shut me out completely, okay?" "I won't." She paused, taking a steadying breath. "But I need some time, Dean. Time to process all of this. I can't just pretend nothing's changed." "Of course." He paused, his eyes searching hers. Do you want me to leave for a while? Give you some space?" Amara bit her lip, considering. "No, I don't want you to go. I may not understand this, but I still love you, and I want to try to make this work. Together." Relief washed over his face, and he took a step forward, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "Thank you," he murmured into her hair, "for being willing to even consider that. I know it's a lot to ask." She nodded, her cheeks damp with tears. "It is. And I'm still furious with you, Dean Mitchell. But I suppose I can try to direct some of that fury towards understanding you better." He smiled, his lips brushing her hair. "That's all I ask, and who knows, maybe someday you'll even enjoy it. Some couples—" "Whoa, hold up." Amara pulled back, her eyes narrowing. "Enjoy it? Are you kidding me? I'm nowhere near that point, Dean. Let's just focus on me not kicking you out for now." His smile faded, and he nodded. "Fair enough. Baby steps, right?" She gave a weak smile in response, her mind still reeling from the revelations of the day. Baby steps. The following weeks were a blur of emotional conversations and tear-filled nights. Amara delved into Dean's secret, asking questions, some of which even he couldn't answer. They talked late into the nights, sharing their fears and insecurities, their love for each other shining through the darkness. It wasn't easy, and there were more than a few arguments along the way. But slowly, Amara began to understand her husband's need to express this hidden part of himself. And while she wasn't ready to embrace it fully, she could at least accept it as a part of him. One evening, as they sat curled up on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, Dean turned to her with a hesitant expression. "You know, there's something I've been wanting to ask you, but I wasn't sure if it was too soon." Amara raised an eyebrow, taking a sip of her wine. "Oh? And what's that?" "Well," he began, his cheeks flushing slightly. Would you ever consider maybe helping me, with my wardrobe?" She laughed, a light musical sound that filled the room. "Is that a serious question? After keeping this from me for so long, you want my help?" He winced, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. "I know, it's a lot to ask, but you have such great taste, and I trust your opinion. I just thought—" maybe it could be something we do together." Amara studied him for a moment, seeing the hope and vulnerability in his eyes. "You really think that would help?" He nodded, his eyes pleading. "I think it could bring us closer, and maybe, just maybe, it would help you understand this part of me a little better." She bit her lip, considering. "I suppose it couldn't hurt, and I have to admit I'm a little curious now." His face lit up, and he leaned over to kiss her gently. "Thank you, Ara. This means a lot." "Just don't expect me to be some sort of fashion guru, okay? I have no idea what styles or colors might look good. I'm just a jeans and t-shirt kind of girl, remember?" "That's okay," he said, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "I trust you. Besides, we can always ask for help if we need to." Amara smiled, her heart warming at the thought of them taking on this adventure together. "All right, fashionista, lead the way." The next morning, they ventured out, hand in hand, to explore the local boutiques and shops. It was a new experience for both of them. Dean, accustomed to sneaking into stores alone, and Amara, who had never given much thought to the world of women's fashion. As they walked into the first shop, Amara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The sales associate gave them a friendly smile, clearly accustomed to a diverse clientele. "Welcome," she said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Feel free to browse and let me know if you need any help or advice." Dean squeezed Amara's hand, leading her further into the store. "Any particular style you're looking for?" She shook her head, her eyes taking in the array of clothing. "Not really. I mean, I have no idea what would look good on you, or anyone, really." He laughed, stopping in front of a rack of dresses. "Well, let's start with the basics. How about a nice dress? Something simple but classy." Amara eyed the dresses, her heart pounding in her chest. "You think so? I mean, I guess we could try. Do you, know your size?" "Pretty much," he said, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his voice. "I usually go for a medium, but sometimes a large, depending on the cut." She nodded, moving to examine the dresses. "Okay, let's see what we can find." They spent the next hour browsing the racks, Amara offering her opinions and suggestions, while Dean tried on a variety of outfits. He seemed to relax into the experience, his initial nervousness fading as he basked in the normalcy of their activity. As he emerged from the dressing room in a form-fitting black dress, Amara's breath caught in her throat. The dress hugged his curves, or rather the curves she had never realized he had, accentuating his slender frame. "Wow," she whispered, her eyes trailing over him. "You look incredible." A flush crept up his cheeks, and he gave a self-conscious smile. "You think so? I mean, it's a little tight, but I kind of like it." "It looks amazing on you," she said, moving closer to adjust the sleeves. "And the color, it brings out your eyes." "Really?" He turned, admiring himself in the mirror. "I never would have picked this out on my own. I usually go for something more flowy and loose." Amara smiled, her heart warming at the sight of him so obviously pleased with himself. "Well, I'm glad I could help. It's definitely a keeper." He beamed, his eyes sparkling with gratitude. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually having fun. Thank you, Ara." "You're welcome." She squeezed his hand, feeling a rush of affection for this man who had trusted her with his secret. "Me too." The months that followed were a journey of discovery for both Dean and Amara. They explored local boutiques and online shops, building a wardrobe that reflected Dean's newfound freedom of expression. And slowly, as the seasons changed, Amara found herself embracing this part of Dean and even enjoying it. She discovered a knack for styling and a love for helping Dean express himself. They laughed together as they chose outfits and giggled over shoes. It brought them closer together, healing the wounds left by Dean's initial secrecy. One crisp autumn day, as they strolled hand in hand through the park, Amara turned to Dean with a mischievous smile. "You know, I've been thinking." He raised an eyebrow, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Oh, That could be dangerous. What about?
Well,
She began, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness.
we've been focusing a lot on your wardrobe, but there's another aspect we haven't really explored.
His eyes widened, a spark of anticipation in their depths.
Oh? And what aspect is that?
Amara paused, her heart pounding in her chest.
Makeup. I mean, we've never really talked about it, but I think it could be fun.
His smile widened, and he squeezed her hand. Fun, huh? I think you might be right. Where do we start? She laughed, shaking her head.
I have no idea, but I know a place that does makeovers, and I thought, well, maybe we could give it a try.
A makeover? He considered this, his eyes lighting up at the prospect. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Amara's heart leaped at his enthusiastic response.
Really? Are you sure? Because we don't have to.
I'm sure, he said, his voice firm. Let's go all out. Besides, I trust your sense of style. If you say it'll look good, I believe you.
Oh, the pressure,
she teased, bumping him with her shoulder. All right, Mr. Mitchell, let's go see what we can do. The makeover was a transformative experience for both of them. As the makeup artist worked her magic on Dean, Amara watched, fascinated by the process. The artist chose shades and hues that complemented Dean's features, accentuating his eyes and bringing color to his cheeks. When the artist stepped back, letting Dean examine himself in the mirror, his breath caught in his throat. He reached up, touching his face gently, as if afraid the makeup would smudge.
Wow,
he whispered. I can't believe it. Amara smiled, her heart swelling with pride and love. It's amazing, right? You look, well, gorgeous. He blushed, his eyes shining with happiness.
I feel gorgeous. I can't believe this is me.
The artist beamed, clearly pleased with her handiwork.
You look absolutely stunning, and it was a pleasure to work with you both. I love seeing couples embrace this journey together.
Dean turned to her, his eyes sparkling with gratitude. Thank you. This was incredible. I feel like a whole new person. My pleasure, the artist said, gathering her tools. As they left the makeup studio, Amara couldn't help but marvel at the transformation in Dean. He walked with a new confidence, his head held high and a smile playing at his lips. She squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with love and pride.
You know,
she said, her voice soft, I never imagined we'd be here, doing this together, but I'm so glad we are. He turned to her, his eyes shining with emotion. Me too, Ara. I never thought I'd have the courage to share this part of myself with anyone, let alone my wife. But you've made it all possible. She smiled, leaning in to press a gentle kiss to his cheek. I'm just happy to be a part of your journey, Dean. And I'm so proud of you for embracing who you are. As they walked, Amara noticed the admiring glances Dean received from passers-by. She felt a surge of protectiveness, her hand tightening around his. But Dean seemed oblivious, lost in his own world of newfound confidence. They stopped for lunch at a small cafe, settling into a cozy booth by the window. As they perused the menu, Amara couldn't help but notice the way Dean's eyes lingered on the salads and lighter fare. You know, she said, setting down her menu, you don't have to change your eating habits just because of how you're dressed. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. What do you mean? She shrugged, reaching across the table to take his hand. I mean, I know society puts a lot of pressure on women to eat a certain way, to be a certain size, but that doesn't have to apply to you, Dean. You can eat whatever you want, wear whatever you want, there are no rules. He considered this, a slow smile spreading across his face. You're right. I guess I just got caught up in the moment, in trying to fit a certain image. Well, forget that image, Amara said, her voice firm. You be you, Dean Mitchell. That's the only image that matters. He laughed, his eyes sparkling with amusement. Yes, ma'am. In that case, I think I'll have the burger and fries. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the city, hand in hand. Dean seemed to come alive, pointing out window displays and admiring the fashion of passers-by. Amara watched him, her heart full of love and wonder.
As the sun began to set, they made their way back to the car, exhausted but happy. Dean slid into the passenger seat, his makeup still flawless despite the long day.
Thank you,
he said, his voice soft.
for today, for everything. I never could have done this without you, Ara.
She smiled, reaching over to take his hand. You don't have to thank me, Dean. I'm just happy to be a part of your life, in all its wonderful complexity. He squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with emotion.
I love you, more than anything.
I know, she said, her own eyes filling with tears. I love you too, Dean. Always. As they drove home, Amara couldn't help but reflect on the journey they had taken together. From the initial shock and hurt of Dean's revelation, to the tentative exploration of his feminine side, to the full-blown embrace of his true self, it had been a roller coaster of emotions. But through it all, their love had remained constant. If anything, it had grown stronger, deepened by the trust and vulnerability they had shared. When they arrived home, Dean disappeared into the bedroom, emerging a few minutes later in his usual attire, jeans and a t-shirt, his face scrubbed clean of makeup. Amara looked up from where she was curled on the couch, a book in her lap. Hey, you, how do you feel? He smiled, settling down beside her.
Good, really good, actually. Like a weight has been lifted.
She nodded, setting her book aside.
I'm glad. And I want you to know, Dean, you don't have to hide this part of yourself anymore. Not from me, not from anyone. You're free to be who you are, always.
He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips.
I know, and I'm so grateful for that, Ara. For you.
They spent the evening curled up together, talking and laughing and dreaming of the future. And as they drifted off to sleep, Amara knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united in love and acceptance. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.